Is there any part of the process that leaders could take a little bit more time in? I'm thinking about pushing their teams back to work and this kind of, we did it, it happened on the Tuesday, everyone's been called. Do you think they rush that a bit? What are your thoughts around anything that a leader's rushing?
I think a lot of organizations are like, it's over, get back to work.
What's that
I
about?
think that's what we were talking about earlier. It goes back to change management. We used to do this exercise in change management where we would talk about leaders who have been in the change from the beginning versus the leaders who are brought in at the tail end. If you've been in the change, dealt with the change and figured out all the things, you've been in it longer than anybody. And in some cases, you're already there.
Yeah.
You're over it. We've laid off the people. Okay, let's get people back to work. Whereas the leader who is in this example just found out and have to now deliver these conversations, they are not where you are. It's almost like you see the fruit of the labor because you see all the benefits, the cost, and all the things that are going to come back. Meanwhile, this leader is still just looking at the stump and saying, I don't even see this tree that you're talking about. I don't see the fruit. I just see a stump. And they're not happy about it. So if you ask me, I think every phase of a layoff, the before, the during, and the after, deserves time and space, that all the people who are involved and responsible for executing are given the time and the resources they need to be supported. Where I've seen it 9 times out of 10 is after the layoffs. And it's because leaders have dealt with it already. So they've moved on.
I was reading some research that MIT had done around layoffs and just acknowledging the perceived fairness of how a layoff is handled has such a bearing on the employees who are retained. And pushing people to get back to work is not the way to do it. It's actually done in the thoughtful communication of it, the checking in, and also identifying that each individual may need something different. There are some folk who are like, oh, that was terrible, I wasn't affected, I can get on with it. And there are also many people who have lost colleagues and who are now thinking, oh, my workload has doubled. And is this another, we're going to do more layoffs in Q3. So for a leader to be able to notice and check in with their leaders or their individual contributors to see what else does this person need? Because pushing them now is going to backfire. I see a lot of that. I remember being in an organization where there were huge layoffs. Oh, and the timing was terrible. They announced it. And then also in the same meeting, announced some good news for the organization. And everyone's, what just happened? We've just lost a whole bunch of people. And now we're also getting a very cheerful message about something positive. Just cool your jets, buddy. We need a moment. Here's our decision. Wasn't a great experience for anybody. We care about them. We care about you. What do you need? And just to sit there.
This is where comms people, change people, or OD people, or HR business partner, or any human sitting in the room with any ounce of emotional intelligence needs to raise their hand and say, I don't think we should mix those messages together.
I know.
That's one of the worst things that we can do. Can we send out an email like the following week? Or can we not bring that up and just focus on the fact that we've just laid off people? Yes. I also think we need to empower our managers to do what they need to do for their teams. I would tell my managers, we need to get everybody back to a solid footing. I'm going to leave it up to you to figure out what your team needs. If they need a couple of days where they're working from home, if they need a couple of days where they're just taking some PTO or some comp time, then give it to them. I don't need to know about it. You each use your best judgment around what your team needs. Because to your point, I've seen it where I've just done a major layoff and I've got recruiters in one corner of the office literally crying and talking about it. And then I've got 10 recruiters on the phone. This place is the best place for you to work. It's like people need to deal with change in the way that they need to deal with change, but they need to have the information and then they need the time and space to get to where they need to be. I think empowering, especially our team leaders, our leaders of individuals, giving them the power to figure out a way to be there in the way that their team needs, and then giving them the permission to do that, I think is really super important.
That's beautiful.
Certainly not mixing messages in a big town hall. That's just absolutely crazy to me.
I'm trying to think like when I may have done something like that as a manager, sent mixed messages or been frustrated with team members or got on board with something fast enough. It originates from myself, like that discomfort of wanting to be a good leader and wanting to make your team successful or achieve your goals or whatever it is. And then to see what feels like everybody stopped.
Because everybody
have stopped. Yes. Yeah.
Layoffs are a big, gigantic distraction. Even the person who's pretending to work through the experience and just hoping that they're not going to get called is distracted. It is a very loud flag going, look at me. If you look at this market and just like the fact that people haven't been able to rebound as fast, I've never seen this kind of market before, but it exists, and organizations are doing really well financially. And there are a lot of people still walking the street without jobs. So layoffs are very loud and very distracting. And I think you have to figure out how to isolate that experience, because it deserves to be isolated. It doesn't deserve to be mixed in with anything else.
I think it's probably one of the most difficult things for a leader to do. Hopefully it's something you never have to do, but it probably is there. It requires you to be really at the top of your game in the moment and in preparation and the delivery and the aftermath of it. And also success at leading a team through a layoff is contingent on, have you been doing the work all year round? Do you have good systems and processes to know your people, to be able to understand what they need, to know how they're performing, to be in touch with what's happening in HR, that you can talk intelligently about the implications of the layoff? That's like the long game that needs to be there too.
100%. This is not a fun time. And by the way, if you see a manager going, oh my God, this is so fun, somebody needs to be saying, what is going on? They're getting too much joy. You are stopping or impacting a financial stream of money coming into somebody's house. You don't know what is going on for people or where they are or what's happening for them. And so it's not a decision that should be flippant. Like, it really needs to be something that's based in fact and data, and something you can stand behind, because these are the right people to leave and these are the right people to stay. This is not easy, as you and I have discussed. And I think the best way is to think about what's in your control and what you can influence and what's out of your control. Perhaps something that's out of your control is the fact that you've been given a 50% target. Maybe you can try to influence it up or down, but the target is there. Maybe the things that you can influence is the kind of data you can collect and the kind of information that you can collect. And even the timing of when it happens, or being super thoughtful if you have a global team, to doing it in a time zone that makes sense for them versus doing it in a time zone that just makes sense to just cut people off. So you look for those things that are really out of my control and I'm not going to be able to influence it. And what's in my control? What can I actually do? I use this reference a lot because I just love it. Because I think when you see that, you can actually sit down and say, okay, what's my plan? One thing that's in your control, unless it's taken away from you for whatever reason, and that's just really crazy to me, and I'd be interested in understanding that more, but is communications to your team.
Right.
How those communications are written, when they're going to come out, you having as much line of sight of what that looks like is super important. And what you communicate to your team. You can be told with guidelines, but how you say it and the way you structure your sentences are in your control. So I think it's really figuring that out. It's also important to think about layoffs in 3 phases: before the layoff, during the layoff, and post the layoff. As I said before, they all deserve equal time. Not one piece of it should be shortened. Before is data-driven, analytical, making sure you're selecting the right people for the right reasons, making sure you understand what the team will look like afterwards. Often leaders will execute and they'll come up with the names and they've given no thought about the aftermath. I've seen it where you'll have someone make a decision about an entire team and keep one person, and that one person's hanging out there. And now they're in Workday reporting to the senior most leader, the president of the organization, because nobody thought where that person was going to go. So the before, the during, and the post needs your time before you start anything, honestly. And again, constantly thinking about in control, influence, and what can I not control is super important.
We know that layoffs can be challenging, and we've discussed today that we can, though, as leaders, if we are tackling them with empathy, giving our teams clarity and integrity, we can make a significant difference. As a leader, it's your responsibility to guide your teams through these tough times. That's why we're here to talk about how do you do that in a resilient way, in a way that doesn't negatively impact on your well-being. What's your honest and personal truth about layoffs?
Layoffs suck. And if organizations would do better in operationalizing business strategy and making sure they have the right people, they wouldn't have to do them.
Ooh. Didn't pull your punches on that one. I love it.
If we're on organizations that have a sound business strategy, a sound operational strategy, and a sound people strategy that's interconnected, we're building this product that's going to require these operations, that's going to require these skills. Do we have people who can do those skills? Yes. Awesome. Move them on the project. Don't have to lay anybody off. Organizations where they just keep adding people because they have new skills required, and the people team just keeps supporting this craziness around hiring and not repurposing and not using skills, they in essence are setting themselves up for, we have too many people and not enough skills. And so we need to lay people off. So personal and honest truth, if organizations got better at operationalizing a business strategy, an operation strategy, and a people strategy that's interconnected, they wouldn't have to lay people. What about you, Dean? Come on, I'm sure you have one.
My personal honest truth about layoffs would be, I'm also going to say layoffs suck, and if as a leader, you're staying close to your people and you know who they are as individuals and you've got a good, solid understanding of how they are performing, then the process doesn't need to be as terrible as it may end up being.
100%. It still will not be great. It won't feel good. Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Alison.
I always love talking to you.
I learned so much from you. Oh my word.
Same here. This is a tough topic, and for our listeners, we're going to share a free guide. And it won't be this intensive, overdone research paper, but it'll be a checklist that will be super helpful. If you're ever placed in this situation, you can say that you got this template from that Leadership Rewired.
That podcast. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone.